for questions and answers. So it means that if you have any question, any observation, please put it on the chat box. Or once I'm done with the presentation, then you can raise up your hand using the raise hand button so that we can acknowledge you. Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. Please permit me to share my slide. Yeah, please, can you confirm if you are seeing the slides?
Yes, sir. We can see your slides.
Okay, all right. I decided to start from here because I've been asked to talk on resolving trade disputes in Nigeria, but I decided to add practical insights and legal framework. If you're looking at what is on the left, you can see job symmetry because jobs are dying and the workplace is becoming toxic. People are no longer too happy because of the economic situation. And of course, owners of the enterprise are trying to look for shortcuts and so on and so forth. From all that, dispute would definitely arise. So this is the agenda for discussion: understanding trade disputes, roles in trade dispute management, legal framework governing trade disputes, approaches to dispute resolution, institutional roles in dispute resolution, and what we could think is the best practice. So, good. So the definition of a trade dispute is: trade disputes are disagreements between employers and employees regarding employment terms and conditions. It is connected to employment, non-employment, terms of employment, or conditions of work. And if we allow trade disputes to fester, it means that it can significantly impact workplace morale, productivity, and overall employee satisfaction, which means if trade disputes are not handled, people are likely to be frustrated. They are likely to be sick. They are also likely to, some of them will turn into absentee workers. And before you know it, productivity will be affected. Now, what are the consequences of a trade dispute? According to Nigeria's laws, the parties that are involved, we need as much as possible to get them identified. Who are they? Therefore, identifying the parties involved in a trade dispute is essential before you can resolve it at all. Because we say it's like a tip of the iceberg. You need to know what is underneath the iceberg before you can begin to discuss resolution mechanisms. So you need to understand the context and the implications of this agreement. What is it all about? What do they want? What are they discussing? And so on and so forth. Then you also need to look at the nature of this agreement, which encompasses the contractual obligation and expectations of both sides, especially from the workers' angle. Then what is the context of the dispute? Because you may understand the evolving aspect of the structural issues. If you don't know the context in which the dispute arose, then it will be very difficult for you to provide a solution. So understanding the context in which a dispute arises helps in addressing and resolving it effectively through appropriate legal channels. So what are the common causes of trade disputes? Before I go into this, because I believe that everybody in the house, I just want to give it about 2-3 minutes for us to also be a part of this. What do you understand, therefore, the causes of trade disputes? Is there anybody in the house that can, what in your own understanding could be the causes of trade disputes in industrial relations or in the workplace? Anybody, please, just unmute your mic and speak.
Please use the raise hand feature if you want to respond to that. Thank you. You can use the raise hand feature, then I'll assist to unmute your mic.
Nobody? What are the common causes? Yes, Ayuba, please go ahead. Laram, Your Excellency, I'm seeing you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think most of the causes of our trade dispute in different climes as issues of wages, issues of welfare, the lack of understanding when you're getting into a job. And then when you talk about welfare, most trade unions and people who get into workplaces sign up on what they don't even understand, and they would not ask at the point of engagement. So by the time they start going through, they find out that time, issues of extra work hours, and then that no compensations and the rest, it then becomes points at which you will find triggers that would generate disputes among employees and employers.
Wow, thank you so much. Our revered ESCO member, who has found it also very, very auspicious to give us support. Thank you. I appreciate you. DBC, Your Excellency, please go ahead. If DBC is not audible, can Your Excellency Winifred, can you speak to us? Common causes of disputes, trade disputes in industrial relations.
Thank you so very much. I think one major cause is where the collective bargaining agreement is ambiguous. So it is interpreted in different ways. Either the employer will interpret it in a way, while the union will interpret it in a different way. So once there is a problem with the CBA, there will always be trade disputes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I have HR gurus in the house who also manage trade unions, and they're able to profess something that has to do with the heart of trade dispute, which is collective bargaining. I'm sure later in the discussion, we're going to find it. Let me take the last one. Is there any other person still raising up hand? Your Excellency,
yes,
Kalu.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just able to unmute myself. I think
Okay.
a lack of understanding of a condition of service at workplace can also lead to dispute in any workplace.
That's very correct, madam. Especially now that we are having, because you expect to have more precarious workplaces, work arrangements, because of the evolving economic situations in the country. It's not just peculiar to Nigeria, it's almost all over. And when you are talking about triangular relationships, that is an aspect really that could cause work disputes. But within these 40 minutes, we might not be able to speak to that. Maybe in future, we want to look at triangular relationships and how to handle it, and so on and so forth. I want to sincerely, Your Excellency, Helen Kalu, can I listen to that for let's take that as the last discussant on this?
All right, sir. Can you hear me, sir, please?
Yeah, very well.
All right. I want to chip in that unclear job description leads to trade disputes, and also lack of promotion coming as at when due.
Thank you so very much.
More work for less
Thank
pay.
you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. You made my job easier. So I don't know why Joshua decided to bring me here, because everybody in the house seems to understand what we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, okay. Now let us look at some of the causes. You've mentioned them. Most of these often arise from critical work issues, such as employment contracts, wages, working conditions, which you have all also mentioned. These days, people are going to be talking more about job security. So let's look at wage disputes. They arise when disagreement over salary levels, pay structures, or timely payment lead to conflicts between workers and employers. One of the emerging things that I have personally seen in the workplace now is that people want to use collective bargaining to rectify the disparity between their compensation philosophy and what they expect. Once you begin to do that, you are diving into, economic waters laden with crocodiles. If there is a problem with your compensation philosophy, you can use a small committee to look at it, hire experts to help you look at your wage, your organogram, your job description, merge it with what is being paid, because collective bargaining cannot effectively bridge a gap between the lag in compensation philosophy and where the people want to go. Changes in work conditions is also, or HSC issues are very, very apt in causing disputes in workplace. Alterations in working conditions such as hours, safety measures, job descriptions, and healthcare issues for self and family can trigger trade disputes if not communicated effectively. Denying workers' rights to organize into unions or collective bargaining groups to represent their interests will also be a cause. Now, other causes that we might be looking at include what we usually call unfair labor practices, all right, such as discrimination or retaliation against workers for unionizing can lead to significant disputes in industrial relations. Breach of collective agreement, which you have mentioned, because once an agreement has been signed and one party who is supposed to deal with implementation refuses to do that, it can lead to trade disputes. Is there anybody in the house that want to please help me? One sector that has been embroiled with the issue of collective bargaining agreements and not implementing signed agreements in the Nigerian workplace. Is there anybody that can remind us? Just one person. Please unmute your mic and speak. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Your Excellency Winifred.
I think in the public service, civil servants, they organize the labor here in Nigeria, and then government as the employer, because they lack continuity. When a government today, an administration today has signed an agreement with the organized labor, a new government coming in tomorrow would refuse to abide by this agreement and will actually be calling for another negotiation.
Thank you so much. That's very apt, and that's very, very important. But there is a key sector in our economy or socio-economic space that is known for this. Yes, my VP.
Yeah, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
The key sector that has been involved in collective is ASU and the federal government. That's the Academic Staff Union of the universities.
Thank you. And the reason is very clear. Agreements signed are not maintained. They are not implemented. And once there is a breach, or you cannot implement, you cannot unilaterally vitiate what has been signed by two people. All you need to do, therefore, call the other party. They don't need to go on strike before you call them and say, nah, come on. This is the way we sign. So the time where we sign up, Naira and so and so. Now where would the team be in so and so? Can we come together and reason and see how we can either renegotiate or what we can do to remove part of the reason? That is supposed to be the standard practice. But we don't see that happen. All right? We have performance evaluation issues and they're not meeting people's expectations. These days, you have rising expectations, a dictation for increase in emoluments in line with current economic realities. You have a people, for instance, who say, if inflation is 35%, you cannot give us anything less than 35%. Meanwhile, the organization is not growing at 35% growth rate on an annual basis. So what happens? Moreover, you have issues of buyover, asset sales and reorganization. This is more predominant in oil and gas. So once you begin to have a partial or complete change of ownership and name change, it's going to lead to dispute. Let me give you an example. There was an oil and gas company, for instance. There was a purchasing of that organization. The assets were sold. And the workers said, when I came into Ogbeifun and company. But this one that you now want to sell me, you must pay me for a name change because that is not the organization I wanted to work for. Simple as it may be, it became almost a strike until some of us were brought in. And this thing just happened not long ago. Leadership styles and high-handedness by both parties could be an issue, exploitative environment, working for long hours without commensurate pay, thereby leading to poor working conditions, or long-winded dispute procedures, when you have complex dispute resolution mechanism and a long ladder of the dispute resolution procedure, that could also cause disputes in the workplace. What are the manifestations of disputes? Sabotage, vandalism of assets, connivance with others to supply inferior materials, or there is what we call in the public service, cash and carry, supply in the morning, carry in the evening. What does that mean? You see people in workplace, either because they are not well paid or because the emolument, is not attractive and they don't have any other place to go. They collude with suppliers to supply, inferior materials, or they supply original things, then they also connect with the people to take it away from the organization and resupply later. I am telling you the gospel truth about what I have found out in some organizations. So it means that they need to sit down, therefore. Which one will you prefer? The sabotage of your assets, or you want to sit down with the people and see how you can up what they are taking home? If disputes are not well managed, it could lead to absenteeism and hospitalizations, increasing rumors in the workplace, increasing complaints and insubordination. Employees may refuse to take up overtime duties. And in most cases, because these things happen over time, and because the performance evaluation, therefore, has not favored a particular worker because they are having low rates, they will be terminated. And that is becoming a concern. So industrial actions during disputes, during trade disputes, we'll just briefly look at it and what the law says about it. Strikes are organized work stoppages by employees to express grievances or demand changes. They can significantly disrupt operations and productivity. They come in various forms. These are organized by workers. Lockouts occur when employers also prevent employees from working during a dispute. This action can lead to a significant operational and financial impact. Work to rule is when employees follow regulations strictly, doing only what is required and no more. This can lead to reduced efficiency. Go slow, they work less than usual efficiency. Now, what are the actors' role, therefore, in trade dispute management? The first thing to look at before we go to their roles is to even know who the actors are. The actors in industrial relations are government as watchdog, government as an employer, management, who are the owners of capital, and the unionized labor, who have to offer their services in exchange for a wage. We call this arrangement tripartism or social dialogue principle in the workplace. Government, management or employers, and then employees or their representative. So let's look at the role of labor unions representatives within the workspace, therefore. Advocacy for employee rights. They represent their people to advocate for the rights and interests of employees, ensuring fair treatment in the workplace. They also act as mediators, oftentimes because they interface with management during disputes, facilitating communication between workers and management. And above all, the labor union representatives ensure that workers' voices are heard in decision-making processes. Therefore, if they do this well, which of course is not too fluid, as we have said, you find out that they promote collaborative work environment. Now, what are roles of management in dispute resolution? They need to proactively identify potential issues to prevent them from escalating into disputes, thereby ensuring a harmonious workplace. They need to encourage open communication, all right? And then they need to create an environment that encourages open communication, which allow employees to voice their concerns before they develop into disputes. One of their critical roles also is to foster collaboration. And management should promote a collaborative approach through a joint problem-solving approach. thereby resolving conflicts amicably and effectively. Somewhere in the lecture, you see that we recommend that you need to meet periodically, scheduled meetings. Sometimes ago, when I was still in the service of the NMPC, I think one of the ministers of labor, when I was, that was about 2012 or thereabout, he put in place what they call the 13-man ministerial committee. What that committee was doing in oil and gas was to ensure that there was regular interface between various management and the union. Management will front load all they have, both from services, servicing companies, from producers, and downstream operators. So once they front load all those things, we will now meet. I was representing the then group managing director, which they call GCOO now, you know, in that committee. So it greatly reduced strikes in the oil and gas industry. But these days, after a strike, they douse it. Nobody meets again until the next strike comes. That cannot help labor relations. So therefore, government needs to come in. And what are their roles? The government makes laws to govern and guide the relationship between employers and employees in Nigeria. The law sets out the rights and obligations of each social dialogue partner, sets out minimum employment standards and good labor relations. It encourages open communication by creating an environment that encourages employees to voice out their concerns before they develop into disputes. Just like I just mentioned, the 13th-man ministerial committee. It has to put in place quarterly meeting platforms to look at potential or real disputes in the making. All right? And then foster collaboration. Does anybody want to tell me what the role of government could be there for, to add to what I have just said? If you know of any, just 1 minute. Anybody? Please go ahead.
Please, if you want to contribute, you can make a raise hand feature, or you drop your comments in the chat.
Yeah, no, if there is no problem, we can go ahead. I just wanted them, I don't just want the class to be too silent. I know we have less than about 20 minutes or so, but we'll be fine. So government should also promote collaborative approach and a joint problem-solving approach, you know, there, all right? Then the joint roles, management, government, and so on and so forth, they have a shared responsibility. Unions and management both play crucial roles in resolving trade disputes, emphasizing the need for teamwork, for collaboration between them. And then once they are able to collaborate, there is a swift trade resolution. All right. And once you do that, it benefits both the unions and management. And what do that lead to? It leads to improved relations and productivity. What are the approaches to dispute resolution within the context of where we are? Negotiation, which is a collaborative process where parties discuss their differences to reach a mutual beneficial agreement. That's the first step. They need to negotiate. The next one is mediation. All right? And both negotiation and mediation, remember that mediation is a facilitated negotiation. They both use communication to facilitate, you know, the process between management and the union. What are the legal framework governing trade disputes? The Trade Disputes Act, 1973, number 7, and so on and so forth, established the legal foundation for addressing trade disputes in Nigeria, ensuring rights of workers, not just of workers, and even all the, the stakeholders, all right? Then they've made provisions for certain trade disputes and other matters. We'll see them later. The dispute resolution procedures outlines various procedures, including negotiation, mediation, arbitration, to facilitate peaceful resolutions of disputes in the workplace. What is the importance of talking? The importance of talking promotes amicable solutions between parties because they can see themselves, talk to themselves, eyeball to eyeball. The regulatory framework, has various laws in Nigeria that helps to prevent strikes or deal with the issue of lockouts and strikes, thereby ensuring fair practices. These laws emphasize the rights of employees during lockouts and strikes, protecting interest in disputes, and then employer responsibility. They also have the specific responsibility outlined in the law to ensure compliance and maintaining of order in the workplace. The first step that I need to do, if you have a trade dispute, for instance, we'll come to that later of these other steps, is to fill what they call Form TD3 and report to the ministry that we have tried to discuss with each other. We can no more do it. So we are now declaring a trade dispute. All right. And then that forms the formal complaint according to Nigerian labor laws and ensure proper documentation of the process. You have the arbitration process, then you have also the National Industrial Court. We'll come to each and every one of them just soon. ILO, International Labour Organization, also have prescription for trade disputes. Most of our laws take their bearing from the ILO. And the importance of fair resolution, according to ILO, is very, very critical in the workplace. Why is it critical? Because they need to protect workers' rights and promote social justice. And all those principles talk about dialogue and cooperation among stakeholders, which are critical in resolving trade disputes effectively and sustainably. They foster harmonious work environment. Then ILO provides the comprehensive guidelines that other frameworks and best practice for resolving trade disputes in a fair manner. And that's why I say that our laws took its root from ILO's conditionalities and its principles. So let's look at what the Trade Dispute Act that I mentioned earlier, what it prescribes. If it is collective bargaining, one of the reasons companies and workers may not get it right is because many people don't know that you need to deposit your collective bargaining agreement with the Ministry of Employment. That is supposed to be the first step. And the Act requires that collective agreement be deposited with the minister. Then the first thing to do is negotiation. If negotiation fails, by talking to each other, you go to mediation. If mediation fails, you go to conciliation, and so on and so forth. We'll also come back to that even as we are going. So let's look at the institutional rules in trade dispute resolution. The first step, like I mentioned, is negotiation. The first step prescribed in Nigerian Trade Dispute Act is encouraging the parties to engage in dialogue. Section 4.1 says, if there exists agreements for settlement of the collective dispute apart from this act, which means your collective bargaining instrument will have a caveat or a section there that specifies how you need to resolve dispute between workers and the organization. All right? So section 4.1 deals with that. Whether by the provision of any agreement between organizations representing the interests of employers and organization of workers or any other agreement, the parties to the dispute shall first attempt to settle it by that means. So they give you the opportunity to talk to yourselves. If that fails, section 4.2 says, if the attempt to settle the dispute as provided in subsection 1 of this fails, if no such agreed means of settlement as are mentioned in that subsection exists, and so on and so forth. So you can now therefore look for a third party neutral to help you to resolve the issue. So what are the roles, the deeper roles government should play? Government through the Ministry of Employment is crucial in overseeing labor relations. It supports the guides in resolving labor disputes. All right. Sections 5 to 8 specify that the minister can apprehend a dispute, can appoint a mediator or a conciliator to help in resolving the dispute. If the dispute cannot be resolved through mediation, conciliation, then the minister can, at his discretion, refer the matter to the Industrial Arbitration Panel under sections. When you read sections 9 to 13 of the Trade Dispute Act, you see how arbitration is deployed to help in the instance. All right? Then government also I think we've gone through this. In continuation, if the IAP issues an award, for instance, and if for any reason any of the parties want the award to be set aside, the minister will refer the matter to the National Industrial Court of Nigeria. All right? The minister can also help through mediation and conciliation if all also fails. Now, once all these procedures are ongoing, a worker cannot declare a strike, and an employer cannot also declare a lockout. And for the avoidance of doubt, what the law stipulates is that an employer shall not declare take part in a lockout and worker, during when there is something that is ongoing. But there is also a provision that states that if they do not adhere strictly to these steps as laid down by the law, they are in breach of it and they can be sent to prison. So, what are we looking at? Roles of national court: adjudicating of labor disputes, ensuring justice, compliance with labor laws. Role of IAP: arbitration and mediation services, alternative to litigation, and it could lead to faster resolution. All right? Then Trade Union Amendment Act of 2005 also has its role to play in dispute resolution in Nigeria. First, no person or trade union or employer shall take part in strike or lockout or engage in any conduct in contemplation or furtherance of a strike or lockout unless the person, trade union or employer, all right, has followed all these procedures. I'm just taking it now to the end of the listing because of the time that we have. Of course, we are going to get the slides, so I'm sure our ICMC moderator will do that for us. Okay? So until you have complied with all these, you are not supposed to go on strike. Remember where I started, that you need to fill it from TD3 to the ministry. Okay? In the case of an employee or a trade union, a ballot has to be conducted in accordance with the rules of the Constitution of Trade Union. You need a simple majority to do that. Any person, trade union employer, who contravenes any act of this section commits an offense and is liable to conviction or a fine of 10,000 naira or 6 months imprisonment, or both the fine and imprisonment. I'm not sure many of our colleagues know this. The provisions for arbitration in Trade Disputes Act, CAP 432 Laws on Federation of Nigeria 1990, shall apply in all disputes affecting the provision of essential services and the determination of National International Court in all disputes is supposed to be final. All right? So what are the best practices as we are beginning to just wind down? Clear communication lines must be put in place. Training and development of the partners to equip them with skills and knowledge. When I mean training, I'm not just talking of management. Union leaders have to be trained. There needs to be a proactive engagement with stakeholders so that they can identify potential issues early, allowing for timely resolution before they can escalate into disputes. So, what are the practical steps for managing trade disputes? Establish clear procedures. There must be timely responses, and you need to facilitate dialogue between parties involved in disputes. That is very key. So, when we are looking at the management attitude to the union, should they discourage unionism? Definitely not. Should they be indifferent? Definitely not. Should they accommodate? It is left for you to answer. Should there be true partnership? Yes, there should be true partnership. Then, when we look at industrial relations policy, should they have management rights? Yes. Should they have union rights? Yes. Should they have negotiable matters and non-negotiable matters and competitive matters? The answer to all of them, therefore, will be yes. It means that they need to have an industrial relations policy that does all this. What about organizational policy? Industrial relations filter, very, very important. So they need to use objective standard to avoid dogmatism, focus on interest, not position, seek win-win, apply market value and community practice law, and so on and so forth. There must be consistent rules and regulations, like having employee handbook, code of conduct, the personalization of decision-making, healthy climate to work, well-managed canteen, managed recreational activities, informal contact. There must be clear communication, constant flow of information, and so on and so forth. Continuous education, like we have also mentioned. In dealing with strikes, we need to, what are the causes of those strikes that we see most of the time? Unions or other parties in lockout by management always have overconfidence of parties, believing they have superior arguments to get what they want. They don't listen to each other. And this is not what we are canvassing or asking people to imbibe. There is so much distrust and doubt of other parties' claims. There is perception of fair proposals. Representatives allow their self-interest to override the interest of the constituents or principals. For instance, how do you look at a union leader who believes that what is good for us is what is going to be good for the people? Or how do you look at management representatives who believe that what is good for the workers is what the principal has said, without allowing people to vent or put options on the table? Some people see negotiation as a game or competition that should be won. That should not be. Then there is also issues of mindset. We should not allow this to happen. All right? So these are some of the things that we believe we need to let people know when we are talking about the processes of resolving conflicts. So what is the panacea? Or what are the resolution, will I say, recommendations that we are putting in place? So one of the things we are going to say, therefore, is that, sorry, please, just give me 1 minute to be. Just 1 minute, please. I have something that I need to do just urgently. Just give me 1 minute. Thank you so much. Okay. We need to avoid extreme demands, both on union and union space and management. People need to take the other person's perspective by looking at what the interest of the other person is. What is the interest of the other person? What is the need of the other person? What do I need to offer? What is the tradings that will make both of us do business? All right? Then, if they still don't understand and they still continue to go on strike, then you need to enforce the laws on strikes. Then above all, like we said earlier, there must be regular dialogue from both parties so that they can understand. So as we wind down and in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen and your excellencies, in looking at the legal framework, we need to have a comprehensive understanding of Nigeria's legal framework by both parties. And it will be very, very apt for them to study it and also imbibe it, because most of us don't really know. HR managers are well equipped, but have you trained your union leaders to also be as well equipped as yourself? Then identify the roles of various stakeholders in trade disputes is crucial for effective resolution and collaboration. Implementing effective management practices can also help organizations foster harmonious industrial relations and trade disputes. So, in all, what is necessary for us to do in dealing with trade disputes is dialogue, 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 communication, communication, and communication. This is where we want to anchor because of time so that we can leave room for questions and answers, for opinions. First, I will urge us in the house, therefore, that instead of asking questions first, those who have comments can let us know to add to the body of knowledge of what we have. That's why we are leaving close to almost 20 minutes for questions and answers or for opinions and comments. Your Excellencies, I want to sincerely appreciate you and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Dr. Brown, Ogbeifun, for that fantastic presentation. That's our godfather. We didn't expect less.
Thank you so much.
That was great. So let's take contribution first. So let's use the raise hand function. Then
right.
Thank you. Let's start with Mr. Calista Zogo. Please unmute your mic.
Thank you very much. It's Mrs. Calista Zogo. Your Excellency, Dr. Brown, thank you very much. As usual, you've this subject is an area where you are more than a champion. So I appreciate the wonderful, deliverable. So we I want to say that I had the privilege of also, working with Dr. Brown at some point in time in my former company. And sometimes we underestimate the issue of disputes in industrial relations. But I can tell you that I had a fair share of very, 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 very difficult disputes with the union. But with the guidance and knowledge that one got from webinars and courses and programs like this, I would say that Dr. Brown assisted us a lot. Then we learned how to deal with them. I mean, we started with a very, very turbulent union. And I think the major problem from what we observed was that the union needed to be trained. They actually came from, you had a situation where the bulk of the union executives were like technicians rather than like, professionals who were really well educated. So that created a lot of problem because they worked in fact, they worked like touts. So we had to start to train and train and train. And some of them were trainable, others were not. But at least we gained grounds by investing in those who were trainable. But the key lesson here was that eventually when their tenure was expired, we had to really, in a way, despite the fact that you are not supposed to, as management, directly interfere with, the nominations. We had to encourage them to campaign for core professionals to join the union executives so that we'll be able to have a kind of more educated and knowledge-based executives. That improved the management and union relationship. So I think that this is a key area. And, it was incredible, the kind of problems we had. You can imagine a situation where a union held the company hostage because they wanted the company to remove one of the managers. And this was one of the best technical personnel we had. But the good thing about it was that we were able to, fight in terms of, all discussions, negotiations failed. In fact, we got to a stage where NMPC waded in, invited DSS. DSS invited the union 3 times and the management, and the union never attended any of those meetings. And DSS could not do anything about it. Ministry of Labor invited the union so many times. They kept refusing, but at the last stage, the director really put her foot down, and at the end of the day, we were able to actually resolve the issue very professionally because the union was also beginning to get weak since they found out that nobody was really supporting the subjects of their strike because it wasn't their right to be telling management who to put in position and who not to put in position. Anyway, it's a lot to learn in this area. And I want to say that one of the key learnings is that we really should train our unions or the union executives, but we should also ensure that in the practice, because this is like office politics, in the practice of the union selecting executives, that they bring in professionals who can play by the rules and by the law. Because when you have people who act like touts, community militants, then you have a big problem in the organization. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that wonderful contribution.
Beautiful. Let me also please just say that, Madam Calista, thank you so very much for sharing. We were in the trenches together at some point, and you also have alluded to it that training is a most. Unfortunately, so many organizations believe that training is not is a waste of money, is a cost. But people like us see training as an investment. A well-trained union leader is an asset to the organization. I was a union leader. I became Pengassan president in 2003 to 2005 in this nation. And when I finished, my management moved me to a position of authority where I now ended up as managing employee relations for the entire NMPC in the country. So training and apart from training, dialogue and communication and respect for each other is very, very important. I want to thank you for your for that value addition. Yes, please. I can still see the hands of my VP still on. Please go ahead. Your Excellency Lara, are you still online? If she's not there, Winifred, please.
Hello?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, sir. I just said that we learn a lot under you and for also sharing your knowledge with us. Mine is also a contribution, but quickly with just points so that others would also contribute, some of which you have also mentioned, but let me also echo them for emphasis. One of the major problems we find out with issues of dispute resolution is the lack of the listening ability on all sides. And then this also in itself brings what you call the ego war and positional negotiations, where someone wants to show the ego instead of representing people of public space advantage, and want to represent people of personal popularity, which doesn't make sense. The other one is the lack of ability in terms of understanding the laws governing even within the context of different climes. Nigeria's context will not be the same, though there is a generic concept like ILO, like you mentioned. But again, most of them don't see the applicable aspects of those laws that would apply to their country in the context of labor relations in different sectors. The other one is the abuse of procedures completely. And then you made mention, and the last speaker also in her contribution also echoed it, is that we hate to train people. You hire people, you don't train them. It's just like you want someone to sweep your house, you don't tell him the angles to sweep in your house. It's not the person's fault. So part of the fault is part on the employer. The employer must create avenues in which labor leaders would be trained. And I know you must have also seen that. The last is in terms of the aspect of lack of reliance, which was also mentioned, but I think it is also key in terms of making consultations with those who are professionals in labor relations, those who have expertise by experience, by exposure, and their education over time by way of engagement. I think this in itself, once that platform is up, it is going to help seriously in issues of negotiations, issues of bargaining, whether collective or otherwise, and then issues of mediation when it comes to labor disputes. These are just my few words in terms of contribution. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much. I quite appreciate. Like I use myself as an example as a labor leader, and I can tell you that there are okay, let me put it this way. In every organization, in every practice, in every enterprise, of course, you have those who might not measure up to the standards. But I can tell you that, honestly speaking, union leaders are fantastic people. I was one. I led at the branch level, chapter level, and I'm talking to you today. The only thing that gave me that platform to be before you, even, yes, I know God placed me where I am, but used Pengasan, for instance. Pengasan, a very beautiful organization that I belong to, was the only reason I was able to rise to that position. I also have, I can tell you that the CWC, the Central Working Committee, and the NEC that I had, fantastic people. When you talk about erudicity, for instance, and you talk about intelligence, when you talk, these are people. And I can appreciate somebody like Festus Yayi of late, a union leader. The immediate past leader of the NNPC was a union leader. He was a group managing, he was a group chairman in the NNPC, managing the staff of the NNPC. Unfortunately, because I'm seeing one comment on this that say, what do you do if labor leaders, for instance, are bought over? I have not seen, because I didn't practice, because once you are a leader, people will follow your footsteps. And let us not kid ourselves about it. Management knows the union leaders who are practicing the trade because of selfish interest. They also know the union leaders that disagree with them or that have differing opinions, because I don't like using the word disagreement like that, that have differing opinions with them in principles. And those people are brought into positions of authority. And I'll give you an example. When I left, the man that stepped into my shoes was a public relations officer in Pengasan. at a time. Malam Aminu Zaria, Georgia Wareta, who is an ICMC fellow, was an IRO of Pengasan in time past. So I can name them on and on and on. Beautiful and handsome people who played important roles. But however, we could also have, black legs everywhere. So you cannot use those ones, therefore, to measure the entire workspace. But I think, Your Excellency, but rather make use of that. You need to speak to that also in your opinion, because like I said, this is for 1 hour. I stopped so that we can have it. Can you share your experience of why you think people are bought over and that could be a cause of concern? Because are you still on, please?
How are you, sir?
Oh, very well, Your Excellency. I'm glad you brought this up.
It's a privilege to be with you on this occasion. Well, from my experience, yes, because I actually participated in unionism over the years, and when we have disputes between the management and the staff, it is not as if most of these issues could not be sorted out.
Are you still on?
But the challenge we have here compromise the interest of the. For instance, all what you have enumerated, they work under a condition where leaders know what to do and they are straightforward. Like the experiences you gave when you were in Pengasa and everything, everybody, we knew that, and we could see the ability of a transparent leader. But these days, you find it difficult. You know what I'm talking about, sir. We find it difficult to have leaders who are transparent. By the time they get up there, they compromise the interest of the workers. That is why we see that conflict becomes festering in an organization. Then all the principles we have enumerated now, then they fall flat. It's not because those people cannot work, but they only work in an ideal situation where we have transparent leaders. So that is why I'm saying that when they compromise, who are brought up, what do we do in that instance? So no matter how much we apply all these principles, we begin to see that they become problem instead of solution for us. That is why you have staff being picked up and made scapegoat in an organization. And when somebody is made a scapegoat, everybody will just keep quiet. Keeping quiet doesn't mean that there's peace, but it's keeping quiet because everybody is avoiding to be a victim of the situation. So from your experience and what obtains now, you could hardly find leaders who can hold on and say that if I perish with the truth. It's difficult these days. We can see it every day that it is one thing you tell the workers, it's another thing you tell the management. And at the end of the day, there will be an impasse in that organization. So this is my own thoughts about that.
Thank you so much. I quite appreciate you. Well, for every 12, there must be a Judas. I think that's a common saying. We just celebrated Easter. Christians just celebrated Easter, for instance. You can imagine the disciples that Christ had. And the most important, sorry, I'm putting it in quotes. Don't quote this outside. I think the most important amongst them when it comes to, keeping the finance of the organization was the very person that gave Jesus Christ out. So for every organization, like I said, there must be one that steps outside that must step outside the red line. But I like using some people, as example. You see, in 2005, I was to contest for my second tenure as Pengasan president. It was our tenure, our CWC, and our NEC that moved 2 years of the biennial conferences to triennial conferences. And every union leader is looking forward to staying for maximum of 2 tenures. But you know that by April that year or so, I was promoted out of the union because in NMPC, once you are an SS1 officer, you cannot belong to the union. I was moved to SS1. And even when my colleague said, no, this can't happen. We can find employment for you somewhere. No, it will kill the union and so on. I just said to them, after the union, there is another life. And that's how I transited into management. And that's why I'm saying that I believe that the principle that guided our own generation is that principle of transparency and accountability. If not, I would have looked for a smaller company to join, and they will give me an ID card. I will go and contest, I will win, and then finish my tenure as Frank president. So we all need to stick with the principles, but what those people are, and then the people themselves, the union leaders don't fall from heaven, they are from us. The people that are going to also vote them, they come from us. So it means that the issues we are having, if you have compromised leaders, the people themselves do need to look for themselves. For instance, my brother, let me give you an example. Do you know that to contest as a president in some organizations today, you spend close to almost 30, 40 million? The question is, what are they going there to buy and sell? So we are having issues. So society also, especially union leaders, must come together and say, look, we must be open and transparent in putting people together. So the people that vote for them are also very liable. Who are the people? Our own members. Do you know that many people also, the real leaders that they are supposed to vote, they don't vote for them just because of either tribe, race, or religion? But I keep telling people that unionism cannot be played like political party or partisan politics. Why? Because hunger, illnesses, all right, poverty knows no race, knows no tribe, knows no religion. And that's why you must put people in place that will understand what it is to, advocate for the welfare of the people. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Yes, please go ahead. I can see Your Excellency Lucas, you raise up your hand. Lucas Rahim, we are waiting for you. If it's not there, can another person please unmute and speak?
Sir. Good afternoon, sir. Doctor, thank you very much. I feel very privileged to be able to listen to you today, sir. So my question is on the abuse of procedures.
Right.
Yeah. So sir, you said if these procedures are not followed in trying to in labor law, labor dispute resolution,
yes.
You read out a fine of 10,000 naira or 3 months in jail. So I want to ask her, who is going to face this penalty? Is it the president of the union or the executive member? Then I also want to know, ever since I was born, I've never heard of this law being implemented. Is it because it's run in contradiction to the right of expression, or there is another law that run parallel to this, and that is why it is not implemented? So those are my questions, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Now, the other one I mentioned was not the Trade Disputes Act, was the 2005 Trade Union Amendment Act that says that if you do not follow those procedures, you pay either 10,000 naira or fine. What it means is that before you go on strike, you want to have a ballot, you must have two-thirds of your members, or simple majority to go on ballot. So it is there. That's exactly why I say people need to be trained. You have just said that in our labor law, for instance, or Trade Disputes Act, there is what you call no work, no pay. Why are they not implementing it? They don't implement it because the unions have found a way around it. When we sign communique, we'll put it there that no union member shall be victimized for taking part in blah, 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 blah. But the law is there. So if the law has stated that when you don't work, you don't have to pay, there is a moral dimension to that. Somebody that you have not paid for 6 months, for instance, would that person just wait and then be looking at you? He has not had salary for 6 months. He has to feed his family, and you say he cannot go on strike. So it becomes a moral dimension. All right. I believe that strike, like I said, is a legal right, is a moral right, it's a social right. But however, you need to play the rule by what the guideline says. And the rule says if you don't follow procedure A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth, you cannot proceed on strike. And that Trade Union Amendment Act of 2005 is the one that specifies it. Please look for it. Google it. You will see it there. So I didn't make it up. all right? And then the no work, no pay principle, we have found a way, like I told you, of vitiating that, and that's exactly why you see that they don't implement it, all right? But of course, Fashola used it in Lagos when those doctors went on strike. They knew that they were going to be a little bit, they were going to be in trouble. That's why most of them what they now did was to go around and beg people to come back, because if you use that law, did they follow it? Did they give the number of days before they went on strike? If they did not give the number of days, did they do the internal negotiation? Did they do self-mediation? Did they look for somebody to do it? Did they fill a Form TD3 and send to the ministry? Did they do that? If they didn't do that, these are all the issues. But then it has to do with training and retraining of ourselves. All I'm putting before you today is because I was trained by Pengasan. I was also trained by the NMPC. Well trained by the NMPC when I was there as a union leader. And then, of course, I need to be resourceful on my own to be able to get to where I am. So I quite appreciate that, comrade. Then, let me leave you with this. The two parties must ensure that they put in place or that they follow the rule of the 3Ds. 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 And that is when you have a collective bargaining that has good faith propelling it. And those 3Ds are, the first D is like no denial. The next D is no deceit. The next D is no delay. The first D, which is no delay, means don't deny what is obvious. Don't deny what is true. You know that inflation is, yes, this is inflation, but we cannot pay it, but this is how we are going to deal with it. Don't deceive yourself. The no deceive, the second D. And the third one is that once you sign an agreement, try to implement it. No delay. If you must delay because you cannot implement, call the other person to table. Don't do a unilateral vitiation of the collective agreement. Yes, I can see so many hands, but I'll leave this one to our coordinator, Joshua, whether he still has enough time to take some questions and comments. Joshua, please. I can still see, if Joshua is not in the house, can I just help him read some of these things? Some of the things I saw here. Thank you so much for all the very beautiful words you talked about me. I love you all. Thank you so very much. I appreciate all of you. Without you, I cannot be. All right? What do you do in a situation? We've answered that. Okay. One thing from Madubuezi, Azubuike, calling people touts should be discouraged, please. However enraged you might be, management should be in tune with trade unions and their contribution to a more positive industrial relations climate, reducing the likelihood of strikes and other disruptions. Organizational culture. I'm still reading. Organizational culture should be improved to allow for inclusivity. Management assumption of all knowing should be discouraged, as there is always a mutual collaboration in helping management to know employees' concerns and needs. Another from Philomena Odiase. There have been many incidents of organizations and institutions not willing to respect and comply with collective agreements. This has led to incessant strikes. How then can parties be made to respect the agreements? I think I just talked about the 3Ds. If they obey the law of good faith bargaining, and of course, implementing the 3D principle, you will have no issues. Thank you again. Kindly share the slides. I'm appealing to ICMC to share because I'll send it to them. I want to appreciate my teacher. Oh, thank you so much. God bless you. Is there still an awesome presentation? Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. And then, Madam Kalista, I saw your hand up. Did you put it down? Was it becoming too heavy? Please unmute yourself and speak.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I think the host was locking the mic. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I think I just wanted to add something to the area of implementation of the law. I think that the law is implemented, but of course it has to be tested. If you go to court on those grounds, then you get the results. The area of no work, no pay, generally it's on, the industry, or rather in Nigeria, people say that it's not implemented, but I have to say that we implemented it. And that was what brought the union to attend the meetings at the Ministry of Labor and Productivity.
Right.
And there was nothing they could do about it. So it's just the courage of the parties to take the issues to either the ministry, or if it has to go to court eventually. But as for the laws are implemented, if you don't go to court for it, then you don't know. But so just to say that the implementation is there, it all depends on the parties taking up the right, or having the courage to go all the way for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. On the last note from me, even if there are still others, we can still take it, because I've not seen my coordinator to tell me to shut up. So I think what I will cancel, and the takeaway from this place, is that every human resource expert, every union leader must imbibe the culture of change. We must change our mindset. Banging of the tables was the in thing those days. These days, it is intelligence versus your words on the table, and so on and so forth. Dialogue pays. Please, if you would want to refer to union leader, use me as an example that you met one good union leader, at least in your career. And I thank Madam Kalista for saying that openly. I was a union leader. And I also believe that there are so many good union leaders ahead of us. So I want to please, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, yield the mic to our coordinator, who may have a word or two for us before he decides to say good night.
Your Excellency, Dr. Brown Ogbeifun, the Godfather, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can we get the slide so we can share with our participant after the session?
Well, how early I take it is not what I think, but definitely you get the slides.
Oh, great.
For those who register with you, they will be able to get the slides. So it's better for them to put in their, emails, so that you can share with them.
Yes, for everyone who registered for the webinar will get the slide.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll send them to you, please.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. This webinar will be awarding a certificate of participation to everyone who participates, and that will carry a 2 CPD units for our members who are looking forward to upgrade from a cadre to the other, maybe from associate to member or to fellow. This will be an addition to your CPD accumulation. So you can visit paystack.com/web ICMC to make a token of 5,000 naira. So we can send you your certificate of participation. paystack.com/pay/web ICMC to get your certificate of participation. And coming up is our direct admission to the fellow cadre. This will be happening in Lagos, Nigeria. The qualifying criteria is right on your screen, and the cost fee is just 1,500,000 naira only. We encourage our members to share this with your colleagues, your friends who are interested in becoming an accredited and certified fellow of the Institute. Members who are here to renew their membership are encouraged to have their subscription renewed, as this comes with several benefits from the Institute. This webinar is part of the membership benefit for all our members. So if you're a member of the Institute and you are here to renew your membership, we encourage you to do that. I also say that to pay 20,000 naira annually, member is 30, while fellow is just 50,000 naira. You can put the account details on your screen, or if you've been needing the account details, I can share that with you after the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to say a very big thank you to all our participants who are taking their time to join the April edition of our Mediators Connect, where we'll discuss trade dispute resolution with one of our experts, Dr. Brown Ogbeifun. Once again, thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. See you some other time.
Thank you and goodbye.
Yeah.